Plan risk management is the process of defining how to conduct risk management activities for a project. The output from this process will be our risk management plan. Risk within our project will exist at two levels. At the individual level, uncertain events or conditions could have a positive or negative effect on one or more of our project objectives, such as scope, time, cost, or quality. The overall risk is where we evaluate the effect of uncertainty on the project as a whole from all of the sources of uncertainty. And this is where we can see the whole of the risk being more than just a simple sum of its parts. Risk is uncertainty. A risk that is inherently negative is called a threat, while a risk that is inherently positive is called an opportunity. Threats that are left unmanaged could lead to delays, cost overruns, poor performance, and damage to our organizational reputation. Opportunities that are seized can lead to reduced time and cost, as well as improved performance and benefit our reputation. Not all uncertainty within a project is directly related or associated with a specific event. We could also face variability risk, which is inherent in the type of work that we're doing. Productivity may fluctuate above or below where we anticipate or plan for it to be. We could also have inclement weather in greater or smaller amounts than we had originally anticipated based upon seasonal weather conditions. Ambiguity risk is where we have to address certain complexity that is inherent in the type of work that we are performing. In some situations, requirements may be unclear, or the means for which we fulfill those requirements may be difficult to ascertain, or we might not even know if it's possible to deliver a solution that we have to develop. This is also sometimes called technical risk. Emergent risk deals with those unknowable unknowns. These are risks that could not have been reasonably foreseen by the project team. These are risk events that are not on the risk register. We were discussing before as an example variability risk having inclement weather. Expecting that we'd lose 2 to 3 days due to thunderstorms would be one consideration, but to actually plan for a major storm event 6 or 7 months in advance that could lead to 60 to 70 days of no utilities or supply chain access would not be something that we could capture. Emergent risk typically can only be recognized after it has occurred. This type of risk is best addressed by developing project resilience, which will allow us to quickly select an appropriate risk response strategy and implement it accordingly. The output from this process is our risk management plan. This is where we will outline our specific risk strategy and methodologies, approaches, tools, and the data sources that we will use. We will define the roles and responsibilities that project team members will have for risk management activities, such as risk owner. We'll identify the funding requirements necessary for project risk management activities and also set up a process. How will we establish contingency reserves for those risk events that could benefit from them? Timing is going to be a very important aspect as well. Risk management will be ongoing throughout the entire project lifecycle. We're going to do the heavy lifting of risk identification in the beginning of the project. However, risk identification will be performed iteratively throughout the project. And for those risk events that we have identified and noted in the risk register, we want to do some type of regular risk reassessment. The frequency of these reassessments will be determined as part of this plan. The stakeholder risk appetite should be documented as well. The stakeholder risk appetite will drive our risk strategy and methodologies. The amount of uncertainty that our stakeholders are willing to accept within our project has a huge impact on all aspects of risk management. We need to figure out exactly what is the hard stop limit and establish that as a threshold to ensure that we do not exceed it. Anything below that limit would be considered a risk tolerance. If we exceed the risk threshold, the stakeholders may start losing confidence in the project's ability to be completed successfully. Risk categories should be defined, and this is what we'll use as part of the risk breakdown structure. When we create the risk breakdown structure, we may use the same categories that we had for the resource breakdown structure or possibly the work breakdown structure. We also may go ahead and time phase these or group them based upon size or severity, or perhaps we will align them by impact to various project objectives. The categorization scheme is whatever's appropriate for the type of project work that you are doing. We should establish definitions for probability and impact as early as possible. So as we begin identifying risk, we can also begin having at least initial conversations about how we feel about the probability of occurrence and impact should they occur. Low, medium, and high tend to be used a lot, but this leads to debates about what exactly do these terms mean. By establishing operational definitions and formalizing them as part of the risk management plan, it can remove some of the subjectivity. If we say that a low probability risk is one that is unlikely to occur even if no controls are in place, while a high probability risk is a risk event that is likely to occur even if many controls are in place, then we're able to have a much more informed conversation about it. We may have different definitions for probability and impact by project objective. Typically with projects, there's certain objectives and certain constraints that are of far greater concern than others. Perhaps we have far more money than we do time, so any impact to the schedule should be treated with higher severity. Probability and impact matrix or matrices is how we will go ahead and do relative ranking as part of qualitative risk analysis. As part of this plan, we are just defining exactly what that matrix or matrices will look like. Reporting formats define how risk outcomes will be shown. It could be a simple template, it could be a memorandum with just a fill in the blank. With tracking, we need to establish how risk activities will be tracked. We've just finished discussing plan risk management. Describe the purpose of this process in your own words. The purpose of this process is to define a risk management approach and develop the risk management plan. Why is it important to define probability and impact scores at the outset? By defining them early on, we can bring objectivity to the risk analysis process. What types of enterprise environmental factors and organizational process assets should be considered here? EEFs include organizational risk attitudes and thresholds, while OPAs could include risk categories, templates, lessons learned, common definitions of concepts and terms, or anything else we may have. When should this process begin and end? This process should begin at the project's inception and be completed as early as possible during planning. Will you document specific risks in the risk management plan? No specific risks are identified here. They will be listed in the risk register. What purpose does the risk breakdown structure serve? The risk breakdown structure identifies categories of risks to help ensure all of them are properly identified and categorized.